Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So I've got a very special guest today. And without further ado, I'm going to bring him right on. His name is Tom Flaim with the cool name. hey, Tom Flaim with the cool name.
Yeah, Tom is pretty cool.
Tom's all right. Well, it's out of the Bible, right? So that's cool.
That's right,
but Flame, you can't beat that. Even, it's spelled a little different, but it's still pretty. It's cool, but it's hot.
All right.
Yeah. I'm going way down the corny road now. So before we better stop that road. So yeah, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? You've got a heck of a bio.
Well, I got a cool name because my parents were both immigrants from Italy. So it's actually a Northern Italian name. It's a very, very unique name. There's not many of us around. And anyway, both my parents are immigrants. So that means I'm the son of an immigrant, which means most children of immigrants are highly motivated. They're about accomplishment. They're about doing stuff. I'm going to do better than my parents, that kind of thing. And I think that's true. And I've seen it in my life with other kids of immigrants. And I try to live that life myself. Anyway, grew up in Chicago. I'm a city rat. So right in the heart of the city. A place that's most people wouldn't go to these days. It's the bombed out area. It's a little rough area, but anyway, I was home for a long time. I went to school. I became a civil engineer, and I did my master's work in organizational behavior and development, which is kind of like a consulting degree, so to speak. And took jobs as engineers for a while. I did that for a few years. I got my license and started my first business. As soon as I had my license, literally, I got my license 4 years out. You have to wait 4 years till after graduation to get your license. I started my first business doing engineering consulting. Did really well, actually. Sold it after 2 years. Took a year off, my first retirement, and went to worked for the company doing sales into engineers, McDonnell Douglas, and McDonnell Douglas got bought out by Boeing, and so ended up working a career. When we got bought out, I was blessed to become a director of sales for our division, and left that after about 5 years, and started my second company, which was a software company and a consulting company. And that actually grew pretty significantly. We became a defense contractor. So I had the blessing in the 90s to work at a lot of military bases, training soldiers on how to use our software within their body armor. So it was that was a really fun career. Then I quit that and took 5 years off, second retirement, and started a water business, a water purification business. And we became the world's leader in emergency water purification. So we would go, whenever there was a disaster, the first thing you need is water. You've got to have water. They won't send first responders in until there's water available for them. So my team developed technology based on the technology. It's actually the International Space Station, recycling the breath, sweat, and urine of astronauts in the drinking water. But we can purify dirty water anywhere on the planet with solar power, as long as it's not salted. If it's fresh water, and we take out all kinds of chemicals, and it takes out everything. Can make clean water anywhere. We developed
Amazing. That's amazing right there in itself.
it was pretty cool, man. I'm telling you, we're installed in like over 800 hospitals in the United States alone. So when there's a disaster, like we had here in Georgia, we had a water main break, and it's affected 4 hospitals. And the biggest hospital had our system, and so they were able to run out. They were actually delivering babies with toilet water because there was no water in the facilities. They're just taking any water available. But they never shut down. And the idea is that you never have to shut down. So we're all over the world. It's brought me all over the world, which has been a wonderful part of my career. And from that, we developed a thing called the strike team. So FEMA credentialed us, and Georgia Emergency Management credentialed us. And so we have credentials. I can go anywhere in the world when there's a disaster and bring water. So whenever, like, at the Great Haiti earthquake, they get a call and say, there's been an earthquake. Can you get there tomorrow? And I say, yes. I get in a plane. I fly in the next day. I've been to every hurricane that hit the United States since 2005.
Wow.
Literally, up until Hurricane Sandy, when I finally retired. But it was, so I've been to hurricanes, wildfires, earthquakes, tornadoes, volcanic eruptions, a lot of volcanoes, believe it or not. And I would go and I would bring water to people who were all of a sudden didn't have clean water. And it really was a wonderful part of my career. I mean, I loved it more than anything. And that led into my ministry, which is my nonprofit, which is called Water at Work. And that's a whole other thing, which I'm sure we'll talk about over the course of this thing. But anyway, that kind of led me into the Dominican Republic and my focus on the DR. Yeah, man, you're driving me crazy. Your intro with all the beaches. Yeah, I'm sitting here, dude. That's not fair.
It's not. It's not. Well, I can't even have that. It's not fair. Like you just described such an amazing life, and and hey, accomplishments are wonderful, and it's like cool. It's impressive when people can accomplish things. It truly is. That being said, when you can accomplish something that helps other people, that's a whole nother level, yeah. And you have a history of doing that. And, that's why I say, like, yeah, I'm chilling in the Caribbean, while you're not at this particular moment, but, boy, your life, what a life you've lived around, and as you got older, it just went more and more in the direction of helping other people.
Well, it's funny because I wish there was a plan to it. I wish I could say, oh man, when I took a couple of years off and I had this really good, I wrote a business plan, got funded. No, we didn't do any of that. That was never that pretty. It was always exceedingly ugly. And my wife was always like, what are you going to do now? But anyway, yeah, I think that over the course of time, I felt more and more drawn to helping people. It really, in the software business, we helped people as consultants, which was incredibly rewarding. And in when I was doing as a military contractor, a defense contractor, I felt really good because I knew the soldiers going off for war would have a piece of technology that could save their lives. And I've heard back from soldiers who literally said, your software saved my life. I was in a really bad place and I was able to get out because of your software. And I was like, wow, that's chilling, And then with the water thing, it came full circle. It really brought together my engineering background, my business background, my adventure background, and it just brought all together into one thing. And the ministry, Water at Work, is the culmination of it all. So yeah, it's been as an old man looking back, I can definitely see the direction God was putting me in, the direction that I had no control over, that was preparing me for the life that I ultimately was blessed to live.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit before, and I was I was impressed. Like a lot of the things that I've accomplished and I've done too, you get a lot of people standing on the outside going, wow, that's amazing. Wow, good for you. Wow. And you can tell that they don't really fully understand what it's like to do it. And I mean that in probably the opposite way of most people, the way most people would think I mean that. What I mean is that I think most people unconsciously and somewhat consciously have this idea that we have it all figured out. And, like you were saying a moment ago, we put this plan together and then it's just out of the gate and we just knock it out of the park. And it's not like that. It's ugly. And I did at least 90% of the things that I did to help my business failed. At least 90%, probably 99%, but it's just that one thing that drops in. And I think where, when you feel that inner calling and when you know that you're doing something that is right and that is going to help other people and you just lean in without knowing, I don't think we're supposed to know all the hows. I think that's God's job.
Absolutely.
But we do have to lean in and take that step, even though we're not sure. And even though we don't know how, take it anyway and allow God to use us to manifest these helping other people.
One of my customers at the time was the Big Red One, which is in Fort Benning, Georgia, 1st Infantry Division. And then when you drive into the base, they've got a plaque up on top of them that says "Follow me," and that's the regimental motto: is "Follow me." Because the Red One, the one 1st Infantry, they were first ones in many times, at least back in the old days. And counter to that, or different to that, we read Christ saying, "Come, follow me." When he recruited the apostles, it was "Come, follow me." It wasn't "Follow me." It's "Come, follow me." It's an invitation. It's not an order. Follow me is an order. Follow me says, I got a plan. We're going to execute. That's the hill we have to take. Let's take that hill. That's follow me. Follow me into the abyss. Follow me into the whatever it is. God says something different. God says, no. I would love for you to follow me, but it's your choice. Come, follow me. Make a decision. Choose to change your life in a way that will let me as God, pour my favor in your heart. Just really give you a life that you'd never dreamed possible. I would never dream some of the stuff I've done. I found myself in Somalia illegally. I've been chased by drug lords in Colombia. I've had all kinds of adventures and I knew that God was going to protect me through it all. I was never worried. But I'm looking back, and I'm thinking as a young man, I would have thought, you're out of your mind, man. I'm an engineer. I'm going to build buildings. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build buildings. That's what I'm good at. That's what I went to school for. That's what my parents expect me to do. And in my life is not building buildings.
Yeah, and that's it. We do. You're right. We have to choose. We have to choose to walk by faith, not by sight. We have to lean in, and it's. I'm so excited about this right now because I'm in another stage of that right now in my life, and it's so exciting. And since I've done it before, I mean, I did it about 21 years ago now, first. And then that led, that was my spiritual awakenings that led to everything. But then I did it with my business, I don't know, 6-8 years later or something. And so now I'm looking back and all that indecision and fear, it's like I kind of laugh at it now because I'm like, I've been here before. I know the indecision doesn't mean anything. I know that the fear doesn't mean anything. And I'm just going to lean in anyway. And I know it's going to blow up into things bigger that's going to help more people than I could ever imagine,
But that's the human nature, is to be fearful. It's human nature to be fearful. We grow up, no one's afraid of the dark when they're born. All of a sudden you're afraid of the dark. You learn these things. We learn fear. We learn, I'm a white guy. I gotta fear black people, or I'm I'm a college graduate. I got a fear of people who drive a truck for a living, or we all fear things that are different from us.
Right.
And that fear is just embedded in every fiber of our being. And God says, no, live a life of abundance, live a life of adventure, do things because I've got your back. I got your back.
Yeah.
If I'm for you, who can be against you, right? And I think that's, and we fight that at every step, but every single time we look at that, you look at like, so I've got a grandson who's going to be entering elementary school and kindergarten, and there's a fear. It's like, well, this is different than my preschool. All of a sudden, I got to get on a bus, so I got to do all this stuff. It's like, yeah, I'm worried. But we all know that once he gets there, he's going to love it. He's going to do great. It's going to empower him to get to the next level. It's like getting married. You're scared to death. I mean, I'm ordained, so I marry a lot of young people, and they're scared to death. And they should be scared. It's a big decision. It's a big thing. But then when you get married, it's like, wow, this is the greatest thing that ever happened in my life. I've got a great spouse, and I've got someone to spend my life with. And so every time we're feared for those big decisions, God ultimately pushes you. God ultimately says, give her the ring. Just do it. Go to that next class. Just do it. Or, ask that girl on a date. Ask that guy out to something. Just do it. And if you hear the word no, it's okay. Try something different. Try it. Try somebody else. Just try a different job. Try something. Do it.
Yeah.
Nothing is. I tell everyone who's ever worked in my companies, there's literally nothing you can do to hurt me. You may make a mistake that's going to cost me a little bit of money up front. Yeah, it might cost me a little bit of, just don't hurt my reputation. Remember, when you're talking to somebody, you represent me and my family and our company, but you can't hurt me. So do stuff. Try something different.
Yeah.
Just be creative in life and let God take that mustard seed of faith and let it grow. That mustard, the parable of the mustard seed goes way beyond just faith. It goes way beyond faith and it encompasses all of life. We've always got to remember, God's got our back. If we put our faith in Jesus Christ, we have nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. I went to Africa without any shots, which is insane. I think it's illegal now to do that. I found myself going through the jungles of Kenya, up in Somalia and Ethiopia, and never got sick, never got ill. I was surrounded by people with AK-47s who normally would kill missionaries. Never had an issue. Never had an issue. Now that's not. I didn't go looking for that. It happened. We were chasing a Bedouin tribe across the desert because they run out of water and they're being decimated. A tribe of like 1,500 people was down to 500 people because they kept dying of thirst. They just couldn't find water.
Oh.
So they called me and said, "Can you help them?" And I said, "Sure." So I went literally the next morning. It was Thanksgiving. My wife never forgave me. It was Thanksgiving morning. I got up in Africa, and it's stupid. I mean, a normal person doesn't do that kind of stuff. But I knew that God was behind it, and it was a great adventure. I'm glad I went. We did help some people, and it was worth doing. It was one of those things in life you look back on and go, "Yeah, that was worth doing." But you look back, I don't remember anything that wasn't worth doing. I can point to thousands of failures, thousands of bad decisions, and I can't remember any that affected who I am right now, or what I'm doing right now, or my success in life ultimately.
Not in a negative way, right?
In a negative way.
If anything, you learned from it and grew from it.
Right, exactly. I always say, life is prologue. It's not history. If you treat life as history, it's static. You don't learn from you're done. It's, I made a mistake. I'm going to forget about it and move on. Well, no, you don't forget about it. You made that mistake for a reason. Whatever it was, you need to learn from it and build on it. People look at failure like it's something bad, and it just isn't. The failure in life is it's the necessary stepping stones to get across the Great Divide, get across the river. We have to fail to ultimately succeed. And it also makes the success that much more sweet. It's when you do get successful, when your company does do well, or when my career was going good, and it was all the failures that made it taste so good. It was all the sins that I recognized in my life that make my current state of faith so good. Because I recognize who I was. I know who I was. I know the stuff I did to people. I know what I did to girls I was dating. Horrible stuff, just terrible, just not physically or anything, but just treating people badly. It was all about me. It was all about me. And once you get past that in life, boy, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess that those helping others and understanding it's not all about us and fear, they all wrap in together, because like if we're really self-absorbed and we're thinking it's about us, then that gives a great place for the fear to breed and to hold us and keep us stuck. So we're just sitting there. Well, I don't want to experience something I might not like, or I don't really like my life now. If I fail at something, then I'm going to like my life even less. It's like, that's not how it works. Like, I've had a lot of people tell me, that they want to do things, but they're not sure if it's going to work, and they don't want to waste their time. And I mean, they're talking about dating, they're talking about starting a business, a side hustle, all kinds of stuff. And it's like, okay, so let me get this straight. So like, you're already experiencing a life you don't want. If you take action, you got a 50-50 shot that you might succeed. But if you don't take any action, you've got 100% chance to not like your life tomorrow. So right there. And then and your fear is that you might fail, like, and you don't want to waste time failing. So chasing your dreams and trying to make better your life and to try to help other people, or go whatever direction is moving you at the time, going in that direction could be a waste of time if it doesn't give you a particular outcome that you want. But sitting at home watching TV and scrolling on your phone is not a waste of time. Huh?
Yeah. I agree. So, you don't want to paint a picture like it's all flowers and butterflies. It's just the opposite. I mean, you're going to live a life full of failure, of worry, and all these things. But that's when God builds your faith. Those are the challenges. Those are the times when your faith is built, when you have to rely on someone else. I thousands of times, right? I could not have gotten through what I was getting through without helping God. There's just no way.
Right.
I mean, it's very scary situations, very painful situations. I mean, I've been through a lot of pain in life, and it doesn't go away. It's not to say it goes away. I just always knew that it was going to get better, and I always knew in the back of my heart, that God was going to make something of it. For some reason, I was going through this illness, sickness within your children or your parents or your friends or whatever. It's so hard, especially for young. I do a lot of mentoring of young people, and it's so hard. You see them going through the first real disaster, the first personal disaster. A parent dies, a girl leaves them after 5 years, and you think you're going to marry him, and she walks out, or he walks out, or you lose that job that you thought you were doing great, and all of a sudden you get fired. And it's so scary. I mean, life is hard and it's scary, but man, it's not meant to be lived alone. It's meant to be lived with other people and community, and it's meant to be lived with your God, with God in heaven, who protects you and who gives you strength. Christ said, Paul said, I can do all things through Christ who empowers me, or strengthens me. And it's true. I mean, it's really, really true. You're not going to go through any less disaster, any less fear, any less pain you're just going to go through it easier, and you're going to recognize it for what it is, a learning experience. That's
Right.
it.
And I think that that's so important. It's not, I think people have this vision that, if they lean into God, whatever that might look like for them, then that means that their life is going to go smooth all the time. And it doesn't. It's just, but I think the other thing that we can bring into this aspect is that most of our emotional suffering is resistance to what's going on.
That's right.
So it's our resistance to what is. So it's like, if you go through a difficult time in your life, once you have faith and you trust in that faith, then you don't resist it so much, because you can see it as a learning curve. You can see it as growth opportunity. You can understand that things aren't supposed to go the way that you think they are all the time, and that's okay. And then you don't have all that resistance to what's happening. So when you go through these ups and downs, it's not, instead of like this huge roller coaster, it kind of levels it out. And yeah, you still do experience a little bit of suffering, but it's completely manageable, and it doesn't knock you around so much.
Glenn, I think that's an excellent analogy. It is like a smoothing out of the roller coaster, because you realize that your highs are not that high because it's all God who did it anyway.
Exactly. Exactly. That's such a huge point.
Because of him. Whatever I've achieved, you just put the foot of the cross. Here, another accolade, another trophy. You put the foot of the cross. That's where it belongs, not in your trophy case. So, you learn it smooths out the highs and it smooths out the lows. It just makes life a lot more manageable and overall a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, and like often when I'm explaining those highs, like I think people get scared when you tell them that the highs are going to level out too. But the way that I describe it is it's like the high, the wow, oh my God, I'm so amazing. Those, you think they feel good. You think that's what you want. But once those level out and your faith and your love, it gets deep and connected to God, then what yes, you don't have as much as those highs, because you're not claiming responsibility for the successes. It's God, it's God's work. Right. But what you get in place of those highs is this deep, deep knowingness that you are loved, cared for, supported, and everything is okay. And I mean, walking through life every day with that inside of your heart, I mean, it's so much more powerful and so much better than those highs you thought you wanted.
And it also leads to an attitude of gratitude. When you're grateful, I walk through every single day. I say thank you. I mean, I am not talking about once. I say thank you at every meal. I say thank you when I wake up in the morning. I say thank you when I go to bed at night. I say thank you. I'm looking out my window right now, and there's this beautiful crepe myrtle that just came into bloom. It's a late bloomer. It just came into bloom. I go, oh wow, I got flowers there today. I said thank you, Lord. What a cool thing to see. Just thank you so much for that. You just when you're grateful, you don't have time for the BS. You really don't. You don't get stuck in the mud. You just don't get stuck in the mud. You realize you just step out of it and move on. And I think that's I don't know, it's a life lesson that it took me a long time to learn. But I do want to say with unequivocally that there are people suffering tremendously in this country and where I serve and all over the world. There are people right now that for the last 3 years, every single night they run to a bomb shelter. Right. There is serious pain. There's serious. It just. Sometimes I look at people's lives and go, "Wow, I don't know. I could never have been that strong to have done that or raised that child or to. I would never have had that strength." I said, "Thank you, Lord, for knowing that I'm not strong enough to do that. I'm not strong enough to do that." I tell people all the time, we as Americans, I know this goes out worldwide, but speaking as an American, we have to look at ourselves. And if you're a young person, especially, You've been given access to the greatest amount of wealth ever in human history. You've been given access to the greatest amount of influence in human history. You've been given access to the greatest amount of education in human history. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to sit here and mope in your bedroom and play video games like I can't get a good job? The hell no, man. Get out there and do something with it. Try different things. Go for stuff. Live your life. It's an adventure you're never going to have today. This hour we're going to spend together, I'm never going to be able to relive it. I want to make every minute count with you because I'm not going to have that minute back. And I think faith does that for you. A true and sincere faith builds that up in you. It makes you realize how to be grateful for what you have, not to feel guilty. I drive a real nice car. I have a real nice home. I live the life I want to live, right? I mean, I'm not, but I also give away a significant portion of my wealth every year, and it's a, there's a balance you can have in life where, you can be grateful for what you have, enjoy what you have. Because I worked hard. I think I deserve it. I deserve a nice home. I've worked my butt off all my life. I deserve a nice car. But I also get such an insane amount of joy from stroking a check or helping somebody out or giving money to somebody who needs it, or if I can. And I'm retired now, so I don't have income coming in anymore. So it's harder when you're retired. Got a fixed income. I'm not, in the old days, so I'll just do another deal. I'll make another deal somewhere. I'll make up that money. It'll come back in from somewhere else. Those days are gone. So it kind of limits, and all my money pretty much goes to my ministry now, to Water at Work. But it's but it's still a way to live life. An attitude of gratitude, an attitude of generosity will never, ever do you wrong. You cannot outgive God. You cannot outserve God. You cannot say, well, we were talking earlier, I coached my son's hockey team for 12 years, whatever. Now you coach your kids too. I thought, pretty good. But that's nothing. I mean, you can't. It was great to do. It was fun to do. I enjoyed it thoroughly, but it took time away from my business. It took time away from my other son. It took time away from my wife. There's a sacrifice with everything you do. But I think that, if you approach things as ultimately positive because you've prayed about it, you feel good about this. And by the way, for all you people out there, God isn't probably going to sit here and speak to you like we're speaking to you. It's not. It doesn't happen that way. When God spoke to me about Water at Work, I just felt it on my heart. All of a sudden, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I just knew what I needed. I knew the right thing to do. The question is, are you going to listen to that voice, or are you going to say, no, I'm going to do what I want to do? I'm going to go back home. I was in the Dominican Republic, and I was in a really bad place, one of the bays out in the middle of nowhere by Haiti, on the Haitian border. And I remember distinctly saying, okay, Lord, I'll do this. I'll just do it. And I went home and I did my best. And now we have Water at Work, which is providing water and the gospel to tens of thousands of people every day in Dominican Republic. That wouldn't have happened if I would have just said, no, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to build my business. I got this division I want to start. I think I can take my product and move it from emergency water into, and we thought about this, into the prepper community, into the people preparing for the end of the world or World War III or whatever. The whole prepper market is very large. We could move our product there and probably make some pretty good coin. Let's go back. And I literally had to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take my energy, and instead of trying to develop another vertical for my company, I'm going to develop a vertical for God. I'm going to develop this ministry and see where it goes. And that's what it is. It's a choice, and I think a lot of people are afraid to walk away. I got to make more money. I got to do another vertical. I got to find this. I got to hit another. My quota's up, 50% this year. My son's quota was like 60% increase. What do you do with that? I got to work hard. I got to work hard. I got to work harder. And you don't realize the maze you get caught in.
Right.
Yeah, you got to work harder. You got to work harder. But at some point, you got to say, I'm done working harder. I got to do something that's more meaningful. I've got to do something something that's gonna be significant. I want something. You know what? My grandkids are gonna go down to Dominican Republic, and they're gonna see a whole bunch of water plants and a whole bunch of healthy children because of what their grandfather did. And I feel good about that. As an old man, I feel good about that. And I
Yeah.
wish I would have started that earlier in life. I wish I would have started that when I was my 30s and 40s, to get involved with something that I could point to and say, yeah, I feel good about that. I'm involved with something bigger than me. And most people don't do that. They don't have
Mm.
anything bigger than them. They work for their company. They got their family. They got their friends. They got their habits, their whatever it is, bowling, drugs, whatever it is. They've got the things that are theirs, and they don't get beyond that.
Right.
And I think
Yeah,
that,
and when God's speaking, they end up talking themselves out of it a lot of times.
right,
Because
it
it's
doesn't
like,
fit in.
yeah, and like you said, you felt it in your heart, and that's of course where I feel it too, and it's but we have to slow down enough so we can actually feel that and go, this, like, a lot of what I teach is teaching people to connect with that feeling, because we're
Yeah,
so caught up in our heads all the time,
right,
and
right.
it's like, well, just wait, like, put your attention on, like, I'll tell people, I'll be like, what's 2 + 2? And they'll be like 4. And I go, okay, now put your attention on your head. Does it feel like that answer came from your head? And a lot of times they're like, yeah, it kind of feels like that answer came from my head, and then I'll ask them something about that they feel in their heart, or something that they know. Like, do you know you love your children? Don't focus on the fact that you love, don't focus on love. Just focus on the fact that you know that you love your children. How do you know that you love your children? Now,
Wow, that's
where
good.
do you feel that?
That's
It's like,
good.
well, I
Yeah,
feel
I
it in
like
my
that.
heart. I don't think it in my head. I feel it in my heart. And it's like, okay, that's the difference between thinking and knowing. That's the
Wow.
difference between, and we'll use our brain to talk us out of stuff that we know in our heart. And it's like, no, we got to learn to separate those two. Follow the heart-given knowingness that God supplies us with when there's something we're really supposed to be doing.
Wow. Wow, I love that, man. I'm going to steal that. That's good.
Yeah.
As a pastor, I'm allowed to steal all the time, right? We steal good ideas from people all the time. But that is a
Yeah.
really good. That's a really good way of looking at it. I never thought of that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I mean, all this stuff is this wisdom is, maybe I found a different way to say it, but it's as old as God, so it ain't mine
Yeah,
either.
right. That's right.
So you
That's
ain't
right.
stealing it from me,
That's
right? You're stealing it from him.
Hey, if you're gonna steal from the best.
Yeah, if we're gonna borrow, we'll call it borrowing, just so it sounds
Yeah,
better.
I know. My wife gets on me all the time. Don't say that. Don't people understand you? I don't know,
Yeah, they'll be
whatever.
fine. Yeah, yeah.
Look at all that.
Well,
But yeah, it's funny because when I wrote my first book, it's called Thirsty for Christ, and it tells a story of water at work, and it's like the DNA of water at work and how I got started and what I was feeling when I got started and how hard it
mm,
was to make that commitment. And we had a significant failure at about year 3 that was shook me to my core, and we
mm,
stopped, literally stopped for a year, and I restarted the whole thing. New people, knew everything. We had to cancel, and it was brutal because I had to tell people who put their faith in me and trust in me, we failed
mm,
miserably, and we have nothing to show for it. I know you invested in us. You were kind enough to give us some of your money, and what we were doing, things have changed. The parameters have changed, and it doesn't work anymore. Well, I'm talking about a number of things, but one specific thing was in the Dominican Republic, you used to be able to drill a well anywhere in the country and come up with contaminated fresh water. Super. That's easy. Cleaning contaminated fresh water, at least for my technology, was a walk in the park. It was inexpensive, fast, and easy. Then about 12 years ago, the whole country became susceptible to salt water. And the ocean waters infiltrated the caves under the island. And now all the wells have salt in them. Most of the wells, especially around the coastal areas and around the plains. You know, when you get away from the mountains around the east side and the west side, not where you're at, but there's salt in all the water. And so now you're pulling up seawater. Well, to make seawater drinkable it's no exaggeration, 100 times harder. I mean, it takes all kinds of different technology, a ton of power, electricity, a lot of sourced water. We had to stop everything we were doing, and everything we did was basically we had to throw it all away and start over again because of something that happened in nature. And that's hard, man. I was in tears with people. Like I know you gave me your last 2 coins, right? As it's in the Bible, the 2 copper coins. I know you gave me from sacrificially, and I'm telling you right now, I promise you, I'm gonna do better. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna figure this technology out. We're gonna figure out how to do this right, and I'm gonna make this right. And that's what got me to start again. We started all over again. And we went with reverse osmosis and ozone and UV and all kinds of technology to make the water clean and healthy. And we did that. And it took us a number of years to figure it out. And for the last 6, 7 years now, we've got it down. And now we're just scaling our model. We're not changing anything anymore. What we have works great. And so we're just building more and more and more. That's what we do now. But anyway, it's it's hard when you fail sometimes, and because other people are involved. You fail in your job and your wife feels it. You fail in your job and your kids feel it. You fail because you got a boss who is toxic, and you come home from work and the first things out of your mouth are venom. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to sit there and yell at your kids, but it's like, would you shut up? I just need to sit down. Give me a glass of wine. I just need to chill. And that comes out. And you don't want to live that way, but sometimes you do. And it's you gotta fight it, man. You gotta fight it by letting God fight that battle for you. You can't win. You can't win against the world. You cannot win against culture. Culture's too strong. It's just too strong. You cannot win against it. And you need help, and the only help you're going to get is from the one culture that's stronger, and that's the kingdom culture. Kingdom culture will defeat the world's culture every time, but you got to have faith, and you got to understand it first. You got to go to church. You got to understand what you want to believe. You can't just say, "Oh, I know Jesus." Yeah, the devil knows Jesus. Everyone knows Jesus. That doesn't mean anything. You got. You really need to get into it. And I think that and that involves an effort. That's the first step, is really saying, I honestly want to understand. I want to know if this is what I want to believe. That's what happened to me. I started out, I've read the Quran, I've read all the Dalai Lama's works, I've met the Dalai Lama, I've read the works of Confucius and Buddhism, and I kept, if something was always wrong, I just kept coming back to Christ. And ultimately I came back, I said, okay, this is what I want to believe. And it was important for me as an engineer, maybe, to go through that process of saying, okay, that's crazy. That doesn't make sense to me. That's not right. And I'll never forget the first time I went to a church, I thought that the pastor welcomed me at the front door. I said, hey, let me tell you who I am. He said, who's that? I said, I may not be your worst nightmare, but I'm going to be a nightmare to you. He started laughing. I said, why? I said, because you know what? I'm new at this, and I'm going to do everything I can to make you fail. I'm going to do everything I can to find a hole in theology. I'm going to do everything I can to find a hole in this whole Christ thing. And I'm going to do that because I want to know that what I'm going to believe is the right thing. And I'll tell you what, it took me about a year, and I walked away going, I can't find a hole in this. This is exactly what makes sense to me, at least. And I know there's other
Yeah.
people who feel differently, and that's fine. I tend to be very tolerant of other theologies and other things, whatever, that's fine. And I hope I'm wrong, quite frankly. I hope this whole God thing is wrong, because there's a lot of people who are going to be spending eternity without any love or comfort, and that bothers me. It bothers me a lot, and maybe it's best if we all just go in the hole and go away. It bothers me that people I love dearly are so caught up in who they are. They're so arrogant. They're scientists. I'm a scientist, so I hang out with a lot of scientists. And scientists are you won't find any scientist on the fence. Guys like me, we're either one way or the other, and we're either all in or all out. And because we go through our process, it makes sense or it doesn't. And for me, it made sense. But anyway,
well, I think that's a beautiful point. I heard that many years ago, and it really jumped out at me, and I've used it ever since. That I heard it said, I'm paraphrasing, but basically it was a man of science. He said, I don't understand why men of science and men of religion seem to butt heads. He says, because I'm a man of science, and to me, if you follow the science deep enough, you find God.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no question. I'm sorry.
And I believe that as well.
I have spent 2 decades on that, and I'm telling you, as a scientist, it takes way more faith to believe in atheism or to believe in biological evolution. Evolution is real. A moth will evolve into 2 different kinds of moths. That's fine. But you're not going to find anywhere in the world or in the fossil record where a fish became a monkey. It doesn't exist. There are no, the fossil record goes, if you look at turtles, for instance, turtles are one of the oldest creatures on Earth. You look at turtles, the earliest fossils show a complete turtle. There's no halfway turtle. There's no turtle in the, just forming or whatever. It doesn't exist. Even on Earth today, when you look at Earth today, there's single cell bacteria, single cell, one cell. But then to get to the next lowest life form, it's 10,000 cells. So where are all the organisms with 13 cells, 50 cells, 100 cells? Where is that change? You just don't see it. I can talk about this forever, so we should probably
well, I think
something else, because it's a pet peeve of mine. But I'm telling you, as a scientist, if you follow the scientific record, if you look at it with an open mind, if your worldview becomes a white piece of paper, and you remove the worldview that says God did everything, remove the worldview that says it was complete random chance, and just look at it, and you will come to God. I'm absolutely convinced.
And I think you just said 2 things that I found very important on my journey. And one, you said you had an open mind, because like you could have gone to Christianity and said, I'm going to find every hole. If there's a hole, I'm going to find it. And with a closed mind, you would have found one. You would have talked yourself into believing one. So even though you were, there's nothing wrong with skeptical. I love skeptical. I think it's wonderful. I think it's healthy. But you have to have that open mind to be able to see the truth once you do see it. And along those same lines, it's that you became a blank slate. Like I often describe when I went through my spiritual awakenings, 21 years ago, that was one of the biggest gifts I gave myself. I went through the 12 steps getting sober and blew open spiritually then, but, it was my sponsor at the time that, he said, is there any area of your life that you didn't screw up? That's not screwed up. And I'm like, no, I got it all. I'm homeless. My body is shutting down. I'm broke. My son's 1,400 miles away, blah, 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 blah. You know, and he says, okay, did you try to destroy your life? And I said, well, no. He says, so you tried to do well? I said, yes. He said, okay, well, would it be fair to say that your best thinking sucks? And I'm a very logical guy. And I was like,
that's good.
Yeah, you know, I'm following the science. Like,
Good.
it's hard to argue. Like, my best thinking sucks. And
Yeah.
at that moment, and he said, okay, so would it might be a good idea to just abandon your way of thinking and try my way for a few months just to see if it works. And if it doesn't, I will gladly refund your misery.
That is one thing that I did that I think really helped a lot. When I was starting to be led towards faith in Christ, I said, okay, dude, I'm all in. I'm going to try this for 3 months. I'm going to be all in. And I went to church. I went to Bible study. I did everything I could to understand and learn. And at the end of 3 months, man, I was on fire for Christ. I mean, I was there. It was just insanely obvious to me. It's like, man, how can you be such an idiot all your life? So it was, you know, you're right that your best thinking is flawed because we're flawed as people. We're just flawed by nature. You know,
right.
That's
right.
exactly.
And that's really what it is. I think it's being all in, because like I blew open spiritually so much. I mean, very honestly, very rarely have I met somebody that's been through the 12 steps that blew open as wide as I did. It was amazing. It was overpowering.
Wow.
It was mind-boggling, you know. But when I look at it, I go, you know, of course I go, well, why? You know, why did that happen to me? And when I look back, I had this desire to die that was so deep that I had been cultivating and fantasizing about for years because I hated my life. And it was so deep that I wanted to die so bad that to me, the 12 steps represented the final chance. So, and it said this little thing, it said, half measures avail us nothing. So growing up playing sports, I was like, I knew what it took to give 110%. And I knew that I couldn't run from my own awareness. So if I gave it 99%, that doesn't mean I get 99% of the results. That means I get 0 of the results. So so really what fueled me, and I've told people this before, is kind of warped as it is. It worked really well. I wanted to die so bad that I was like, and I was so tired that I was like, I am not going through these 12 steps, putting in 99% of the effort, having them not work, know deep in my heart that I didn't give it 110%. And then have to start back over. I don't have that. I'm going to either launch or die. Those are my only 2 options. I am not willing to have either one. And so every time I wanted to do something half-ass, every time I wanted to balk at something, every time I wanted to just kind of do it, but not fully do it, I thought of that. And I was like, do you have the effort? Do you have the energy to start over through this process again? And I went, no, I don't. So I gave it 110%. And because I did, you know, it says, you will be amazed before you are halfway through. And after my 5th step, before my 6th, which is halfway through, I started blowing open. And I was like, oh my God. So I became that blank slate and I fully committed. And I think that that's, you know, God sees inside of our heart. So when you're fully committed like that and you're giving it everything you have, God's going to show up every time, every single time. But when you're over there dilly-dallying, navigating your way around, staying stuck, pretending that you're efforting, it's not going to happen.
Right. Exactly right. I agree. The God wants, you know, I look at it as a father, my greatest joys in life, and some of my greatest joys in life, were watching my kids achieve with what I gave them. Like I gave my son a bass guitar, my youngest son, and he ended up being like really good, really good. And it was, I'd go watch him on stage, and there's all these people cheering and stuff. And it was like,
Wow.
God, that's like,
That's cool.
yes. That's my boy up there, And I'm thinking God's the same way. He's our Heavenly Father. And
Yes.
he's looking down at us and saying, well, I gave Glenn this opportunity, and look, he's killing it. He's over there going, hey, Moses, come here, check out this guy Glenn.
Check this out.
Look what he's doing down there, man. This guy's killing it.
Oh, I love that.
I believe God takes great joy in watching his children get it and achieve for him, and to build the kingdom for him, and to give him the glory, and to recognize that we're just here. We're just in a stopping point on our way to our ultimate life. He's looking forward to being with us forever in person, and I can't wait for it. I really can't. I think that when I look at, it's funny because I've got a guy who's a significant financial donor to our ministry, really significant. And I've known him for a lot of years. Every single year for 8 years now, he's given us a very, very large amount of money, and it's helped us a lot. And I said, dude, don't you want to come down there and see it sometime? He never goes. I said, you want to come down? I'll take you down. We'll run down to Dominican just for a weekend. He said, no, don't need to go. And he says, I'm watching you. And he goes, I am just having so much fun watching what you're doing down there with our money. He goes, I'm having so much fun watching what you guys are achieving with my resources. That he goes, I love it. He goes, I just love it. I just love getting together for lunch once in a while so I can hear more about what you're doing, the next village you're going to do, or the children, whatever, or whatever. And it's humbling, man. It's humbling, and but it is an insight into the nature of God. I believe that he is looking down at us, going, "Come on, man, come on, dude. No, you can do this.
I got you. Let's do this."
I'm talking to you. Listen, I had a guy just 3 weeks ago, somebody I'm mentoring told me, he said, hey, he goes, I was in prayer last night. I said, oh, good for you. I said, what did you hear? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you were in prayer. What did you hear? He said, I was praying to God. I prayed for the people I know who are sick. I was praying for the people in Russia and Ukraine. I was praying for all these things. I said, that's great. What did you hear? Because if you don't hear anything from God, then you're not in communication. Now you're just telling God stuff.
Right.
Well,
it's a two-way. It's a two-way relationship.
How would you like it if your kid came to you and just and they don't listen to you? They're already in their mind. They don't want to listen to you. Well, how long are you going to talk before you finally get tired and I'm going to go talk to the other guy? Right? And I think there's some of that going on too. At some point, God says, come on, guys, listen to me. I'm trying to help you here. I'm trying to talk to you. Stop. Slow down. Sit underneath a waterfall for an hour and just listen to the water. And then you'll hear my voice. But I'm not going to shout because I don't do that. I'm God. I don't need to shout.
Well, I think this is a beautiful, well, we're almost at an hour, so we got to wrap it up. But I'm
sorry.
No, it's all good. I mean, like, my heart is full, especially what we've been talking about right now. And I love that visual that you gave of God just looking down on us and just going like with pride and going, wow, like you guys are knocking it out of the park. I think that's, I'm going to have that vision moving forward, and just it's going to help drive me. I'm going to steal that one. I'm going to steal that from you.
All right, that's all right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on, and this has been phenomenal. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I love what you're doing, and God bless you for all you're doing to build this kingdom. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. God bless you too. And hang on. I'll be right back. And thanks everybody for listening.
Bye.